Okay, so this is always a question mark. What is behind this bump out? Now I did put a little access panel in here, so I did take a peek, and there's just a vent stack in here. But the real question is how much can I expand this shower? So we'll be able to uncover this, remove it, and see what we can do to expand it, because this 30-inch shower, I mean, you could barely lean over in this. So this is not acceptable in my mind. We need to get a bigger shower in here. Okay, so first thing, you want to make sure the water's off in the whole entire bathroom. And let's just get rid of some of this faucet material here. Okay, so two-handled faucet, definitely not acceptable anymore. Most building standards require you to have an anti-scald mechanism, and just turning on the hot water, it obviously scalds you in this shower. So let's just get rid of these handles before we demo things. Probably gonna take a little bit of should thread out, hopefully. Yeah, they just, at least that's not all corroded. Okay, so in a scenario where I was leaving this drywall, I would make a nice level mark and cut this all out. But since I'm removing all of this drywall, I'm not too overly concerned about it, but I just want to still cut out the tile. Now, I'm willing to bet that this is just straight over drywall. They used to do that in the 80s, and it's pretty bad practice, but yeah, it's most likely going to come out very easily, but you don't know until you start. So let's get a respirator on, cut our line off of here. Okay, so same thing here. If I were leaving the ceiling, if I wanted to leave the ceiling, which I'm not, but I would score this so that it cuts cleanly and you don't rip off paper tape off against the ceiling. But in this instance, I'm taking out the ceiling as well, so it won't really matter. Okay, so we're going to cut out some of this piping before we take the wall out. So I'm just using my auto cut tool here. So this wall is just a interior wall, so we're just going to cut this out. Okay, so the drains, sometimes they're just pushed in with a fitting, so you might not be able to pull out the rubber gasket that goes around it, but yeah, actually you can on this one. So you can just pull this rubber gasket out of here. Okay, so then that would allow you to take it out. If you can't do that, the next best option is just to take your circular saw and plunge cut. protect that pipe, and then just pull it up. And I'd have to say that's a first. Putting shingles underneath a shower pan. Can't say I've ever seen that before. I'm not sure exactly what purpose that would give, but it certainly isn't doing a whole lot. Okay, so let's go uncover our plumbing, see what we got here. I don't know why there's a piece of 1x here. Exactly. Alright, so when you use a Sawzall in an area like this, try not to let the whole blade go into the floor, because I mean, I don't think there's any electrical here, but you just want to be careful. All my plumbing, as you can see, is above, so I'm not too concerned about that. I'm just concerned about some wires. So when you use this, just try to be shallow with your cuts. These wires in here, so I'll get my oscillating tool to be a little bit more precise. Where is that? Oh, that's behind the furnace. Okay, so I'm going to just use this little oscillating tool. This is made by Fine, but this will be a lot more precise than that Sawzall, because I have all these wires here I want to be careful of. So I'm just going to cut it with this. Looks like we're going to have enough slack to move all these wires back into a wall cavity here. That's good. Okay, so originally I wanted to move this whole vent stack back further, but it's going to be a lot of complication for an additional 3 inches. And really, my existing shower was 32 before, which is really narrow, and now I'm getting an extra 10 inches out of it because it'll be about 42 inches. I'm just going to have my framing meet up right with the edge of this. Yeah, 36, so that valve is going to be right here. But this T, the way it is with this old copper, basically, if I wanted to actually move this, I would have to get a couple 45-degree elbows. But the problem with that is that it's still above floor to where it's moving over. So I'm still going to be stuck with that 42 inches. The way I would have to address this is actually move this T back. So cutting here, and then furrow and moving it over. For 3 inches, which is all about I can get, I mean, I got, well, 4 inches. So I could probably get like 3.5 inches of more space to move this over, but the troublesome of changing all of that for 3 inches just isn't worth it to me or the client. So we're just gonna go framing straight up to this. The other thing I want to pay attention to is where my shower valve is going to be. I'm going to be about 18 inches. So this vent's going to be right pretty dang close to where my shower valve has to be. But yeah, so we're going to adapt the PEX off of the copper and bring it up for the valves. All right, so 42 is going to be 21, so we got to change the trap. Boy, that's a weird finagle. Okay, so every shower drain assembly is usually pretty different, especially in the older days, 30 years ago. They didn't really have the accurate plans that they do now with replicating the same system over and over again. So you're always kind of uncovering a different system in these older homes. So what I just did was just cut off that 2-inch trap, and I'm going to be using a Fernco to adapt to PVC drain. Now, when you use drains that you can't have access to, you always want to use a glued in type P-trap. And remember, when you're converting anything from to a shower, it always has to be 2-inch piping all the way through the waistline. And if you can see here, there's actually a vent that comes off the back end of my shower drain, and it's considered a crown vent. So the shower is vented, this 1.5-inch line that goes up to the right. So be sure that when you're looking at your shower drains that they are vented, because that's really important for the flow of water. So what I'm going to be using is PVC glue, primer, and cement made by Wedi. Link is in the description for that. But you really just want to be priming the fittings and the actual pipe. Prime it first, and then you can just immediately start gluing them together. So one quick tip about this is that you definitely want to cover both the fitting and the pipe. And then when you put it in, I always like to do like a quarter turn and you just hold it for a few seconds, about 10 seconds, because if not, it wants to push the fitting out. So, just be sure that when you put the fitting together that you actually press it together. And here I'm just priming my trap arm because it's going to be hard to efficiently prime that when it's in place. So we just put the Fernco onto the existing 2-inch copper line, and you want to use a level once you get this in place to make sure that that trap stays level. This will make sure that your riser pipe is plumb as well. So here I'm just using a level, and I'm just addressing that, making sure that that stays level, and then your P-trap, your actual trap arm, will be plumb because of that situation. I like to use a driver bit on my impact drill to tighten that Fernco. And just ensures that you don't want to over tighten it, but it does make a nice snug fit. So then prime your fittings again, and then you can immediately glue with the PVC glue. Now this is a little tricky. You only have so much time before this sets up, and then you can't move it anymore. So when you do this, you want to be installing it and then immediately have your tape measure there to make sure that you sit that trap arm in the correct locations. And if you haven't done this before, it might not be a bad idea to buy 2 traps just in case you screw the first one up, because running out to the stores is really painful when you're in the middle of this project. I always have a couple traps on hand just in case I didn't get to it quickly enough and things set up and then I can't move it. But you normally have about 10 seconds to be able to move that into place. So just double check your measurements. And in this instance, we're going to be doing a Wedi shower system that's going to go over top, which is a waterproof shower pan system. So I will be gluing the riser pipe in, but I do recommend that if you're going to be doing a Schluter shower, that you wait. Just keep the riser pipe in there, but don't glue it. Glue it after you get the pan in. It makes it a little bit easier. But for the Wedi system, I like to glue that riser pipe in. Okay, so we're going to be installing one of these to hold this up because this moves all over the place. So we just put this on the bottom of the trap. It's got nails that come with it. And I want to pull it over a little bit because we're a little bit off. We've got 20 inches. So they'll be able to get some movement out of this. So we'll just kind of pull this over a little bit. So that starts it up. We got 20.5. That's probably going to be fine by 18. So with the Fernco, you are going to get a little bit of movement out of it, but once I connect it to the actual pan, I'll be okay. But just this scenario, I'm a 1/2 inch off from my ideal location, but that's going to be close enough for what I'm doing here. Okay, so we want to cut a 5.5 inch hole. So we got like 20 5/8. Okay, so plywood area. We'll be sinking this underneath this wall a little bit, so 19 inches. So for the Wedi Drain, you need to do a 5.5 inch hole. All right, so that's not bad. We'll get some better supports on here because I don't like the way it was sitting on there. I'll just go to straight 48.5. I'll make sure it stays level. Okay, so we want to glue this plywood down. Okay, so one other thing you want to pay attention to is that you have 16 inches on center on your framing, the deflection in between the joists. So for most shower systems, there's going to have to be 16 inches on center, and that will eliminate any deflection in between the joists. So let's just also just mark our bottom stud here of where these joists are so that we don't miss them. So about every 8 inches, I'm using 8-penny nails. To make sure that this subfloor is level either way, so we're good. That's good. Okay, so for the width of the shower, we're going to expand that out as well. The shower pan we had in here before was a 32 by 32. So we were able to extend that out to 42 because we're going to have framing meeting up with this wall or with this plumbing stack. So as far as rolls go for the toilet and how far away from the shower, you want to be a minimum of 15 inches from the center of the toilet to any fixture. So the shower being a fixture, you want to be 15 inches away from that curb. So measuring over here, we can expand the shower out quite a bit. Now I only got a 36-inch pan, and then we'll have a 4-inch curb that will be centered on that. So we'll be about 40 inches, well, give or take 40 inches overall. So that'll be our indication point there. So we got basically 18 inches away from the center of the toilet. Now that's pretty ideal for me. That's usually where I like it to be, is about 18 inches. 15 is still a little, you don't have a whole lot of elbow room there. So we're going to frame this out, the actual wall. We're going to make it, going to take 1.5 inches past our edge. So we'll be, and the main reason for that, we'll get into the tiling detail later, but the reason that we're going to extend this wall out further is so that the curb has something to butt up against and it's not going to overhang the outside wall. So we'll make our total rough-in framing. We'll go 1.5 inches past the 40 mark of our shower. So we'll be 41.5 is what we're gonna make our wall. And now I'm gonna get some of this tile out of here first. Okay, so we'll measure, I like just to put the stud where I'm gonna end it all the way up into the ceiling and then nail that in. So it's 91.125. Okay, so we wanna put a square on here, get a straight edge. So we want to be even with these and with this vent so that we can get as much room into the shower as possible. But I'm going to just give myself just a little bit of room, like a 1/4 inch, because I don't want that pipe interfering completely with, I don't want this protruding out. And plus we have a these fittings, these brass fittings that bump out a little bit too. So give yourself a little, like a 1/2 inch outside of that plumbing so that you have room. And then we'll just simply measure, make a measurement off of our back wall here. So our actual measurement is 42, so we'll make it 41.5. All right, so then we need to basically make this 41.5 as well.
And I'm just using some shims here just to hold it down that 1/2 inch for the ceiling. I did not finish that ceiling area, so that's the only reason for the shimming of that top block. So it's really important to keep double checking your measurements and making sure that you have the correct distance between the floor. That's going to make it much easier to install the shower pan that you'll be installing. Now, as you can see here, I'm doing some notches and for around this vent pipe. Definitely less than ideal for that kind of situation, but I wanted to get the full expansion of the shower as much as I can. So just notching that out allows me to go over those vents. And then again, you always want to use your level and make sure that all your studs are all in the same plane because it makes it much easier for tile work.
Okay. All right, so measuring off of this, we're going to have our shower valve pretty tight to this 2x4. So we still need to be 16 inches on center, so this is too much here. So we'll just get something right in the middle. So we'll put this one flat ways so that we have something to anchor our shower doors into. Okay, so this is really weak because I just have that little notch out there. So I'm gonna put some support on this back wall here. So I'm just gonna put something here to just give it a little bit of support. Let's make sure that this doesn't stays where I need it to be. Okay.
So you want to pay attention to the corners of your shower. You always need blocking or you want to have support in the corner. So this is where I used a 2x4 flat ways in that corner.
And then our shower valve, you want to be about 45 inches. Anywhere between 42, 48 is a normal area for your hand or your shower valve. And then we're going to have a diverter valve that will go from my shower head to my handheld. So I would probably just set off the base of my floor, off of my subfloor, go 45 inches, and then we'll just put a 2x6 blocker even with the back of the wall because we're doing a delta shower valve. So you can just put a 2x4 to the back end of the studs. So 11.5. Okay, so just even with the back of the studs, that'll be appropriate for a delta valve. Really makes it easy.
Okay, I wanted to pause here real quick because this is a really important part of the framing installation here. To get the valve at the correct depth, you have to add the thickness of your backer board plus the tile plus the thin set. So if you have a standard 3/8 inch thick tile and you add your thin set, which is typically about 1/8 of an inch thick, plus your 1/2 inch backer board, you'll end up with an overall depth of 1 inch outside of your rough-in framing. So with that 1 inch, you want to be able to calculate from where the front of your valve needs to be, because most of your manufacturers are going to show you a depth from the finished wall to the back of the valve. So Delta specifically says 2 3/4 inches from the plaster guard, which is the front of your rough-in valve, plus or minus 1/4 inch. So we have the 1 inch with the backer board and tile, and then we set our blocking at 2 inches behind our front of our 2x4, and I just do that because that's simple, because you can just literally just put a 2x6 even with the back of your 2x4 wall, and you're set at the right depth. So you got 2 inches plus the 1 inch, that's 3 inches, and that works with the placement that Delta wants you to have. So just wanted to reiterate that real quick.
So if you just have this 2x4 even with the back, I'm using screws on here because I don't want to nail anything into my vent by accident. Okay, so that'll be for that, and then approximately another 10 inches we'll put another block for our diverter, so 11.5, and then we'll have to do one for our shower head as well. So 3 blocks for that, along with one for the handheld port that comes out. Okay, so we'll say the center of this is 2 3/4. So the center of this next one will go 12. So that's good right where it is. Okay, then one more for a shower head. Now shower heads, the old standard used to be 78. That's a little bit too low for these days. So I'll go 82 inches. That's usually where I like to put mine. So we'll get another block up here, 11 3/8. Just hold about 1 inch behind the rough framing. It doesn't have to be completely accurate. It just needs to be so that when I put that shower port in there, it'll be just about 1 inch behind the studs. Okay, then the shower port for your handheld, I like to kind of hold it up high so that your cable runs down. So I usually like to have my handheld, somewhere right around here, but I like to have the port about 60 inches off the floor. And then you're going to want to make this one about 1 inch, about 1.5 inches behind the wall. So yeah, we'll just get a 2x6 here as well. Okay, so this is just a 1/2 inch piece of scrap just a scrap piece of plywood, because then this would leave me 1.5 inches from the front of my studs. So that's what I want to leave for this port. So I'll just nail this here. Okay, then we'll just mount our port to that. We've got our blocking for a diverter, blocking for our valve, and then blocking for our shower head. And then we have support here in the corner. Everything's within 16 inches on center. Everything is in line with one another. This is important because you want to be as flat as possible. The flatter the surface, the easier it is to tile. So double check all your other areas. And I would pretty much say anything within 1/4 inch is good enough. If it becomes where you're bowing in further than that, you want to either plane it or add on a sistered stud to be able to bring that out. But just double check everywhere. Make sure that your studs are all even. One other thing I'm going to do is put another 2x6 here so that I have support for my shower door.
So I hope this demonstration has given you some insight on what's involved with all the framing and moving plumbing to expand a shower. Now don't be deceived by this 30-minute video. This definitely took all day to actually accomplish. So the biggest thing I could say is try to have all your materials in front of you and ready to go for a day like this. You don't want to be running back and forth from your big box stores to get materials. It'll just kind of really make this a lot longer process. And that's really my goal, is to help you be able to see what you might be encountering and try to plan ahead for this to simplify this process. So please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, comment if you will. Really helps get this information out here. In my next video, I'm going to be going over installing the Wedi shower system, which I really find to be one of the easiest systems out there, especially if you're new to this type of project. It's foolproof in a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways to adjust things to make it fit for your shower. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.